Aloha mai kako! Good evening and welcome to Brighter Together, a virtual candlelight vigil. Mahalo nui loa for virtually joining us tonight. We created this space to be interactive, so we'd love to hear from you throughout the night. If you haven't done so already, type in the chat and let us know where you're tuning in from. My name is Jethro. I'm from Waipahu. I'm a graduate student at the Myron B. Thompson School of Social Work and the University of Hawai'i at Manoa PAU Violence intern.
And I'm Cristiano Aria, the PAU Violence Coordinator of UH Manoa PAU Violence Program. I'm originally from Maui, but living in Honolulu. We will be your MCs for tonight. The Prevention, Awareness, and Understanding Violence Program, more popularly known as PAU Violence, exists to inspire, educate, and empower students and the campus communities to build safer, living learning environments free of interpersonal violence. We provide violence prevention trainings and awareness events throughout the year. We have a presence on each of our 10 campuses within the UH system. For more information about PAU, check us out at manoa.hawaii.edu/PAUviolence and follow us on Facebook and Instagram at PAU Violence. We want to take this time to thank our sponsors, the Department of Health, Domestic and Sexual Violence Prevention Programs, Na'Leokane Collaborative, our UH PAU Violence System, and the many participating partners listed here. Without your continued support, we wouldn't be able to hold this sacred space with you all. So mahalo.
Domestic violence is a pattern of behaviors used by one partner to maintain power and control over another partner in an intimate relationship. Domestic violence doesn't discriminate. People of any race, age, gender, sexuality, religion, education level, or economic status can be a victim or a perpetrator of domestic violence.
Domestic violence is a prevailing issue here on our islands. In 2017, about 1/3 of murders in Hawaii were committed by intimate family, spouses, and dating partners of victims. On a single day in Hawaii, 246 adults and children victims of domestic violence found refuge in emergency shelters, transitional housing, and other housing provided by local domestic programs.
Also, between 2017 and 2019, we've seen a significant increase of dating violence based on our UH Campus Climate Survey.
Now, being in this COVID-19 pandemic, we're seeing higher rates of mental health issues, unemployment, businesses closing, isolation, and the list goes on. These external factors add to the stress and financial pressures that negatively impact survivors. Social distancing can help to reduce the spread of COVID-19, but for many survivors, staying home may not be the safest option. In fact, since the coronavirus hit, there's been a surge locally, nationally, and globally of domestic violence cases being reported.
We are grateful to be here hosting this virtual vigil in Hawaii. We want to recognize and pay respects to the Kanaka Oiwi people of the past, present, and future. We recognize the historical exclusion of the native peoples of this land. Therefore, we acknowledge the needed partnerships with native communities to better steward cultural resources and homelands to continue healing and flourishing of all people here in Hawaii.
As we mentioned earlier, we created this space to be interactive, and even though it's virtual, we want to see you. If you're able, we'd love it if you take a photo. It can be of you, your viewing setup, or whoever you're watching with. Post it to Instagram and tag us at PAU Violence so we can get to see who else is in the audience.
To help in raising awareness, we created domestic violence awareness graphics. You can download them for free in the resource section down below. We'll also post the link in the chat.
We want to make sure that you're supported at all times. If you would like to speak with a confidential advocate, check out the resource section below. They will remain available throughout the duration of today's event. When planning for a candlelight vigil, we thought about light, the light we have within ourselves, and how we all shine brighter. Together, we can shine our light on darkness of domestic violence, exposing it and ridding it of its powers. We can also shine our light towards a brighter future for a campus, a community, and a state free of domestic violence. We want to let you all know that in these dark times, we are truly brighter together.
For centuries, Hawaiians have used the kukui nut to light the way. The rich oil content is perfect for burning for a long period of time, like a candle. We can, of course, use this as a single candle, and it is important. It is special. It is beautiful by itself. But by itself, it can only shine so bright. By itself, it can only burn for so long. By itself, it cannot fulfill its ultimate potential, and it will burn out. When you add another, each individual nut can burn brighter than it could alone. When you keep adding more, they all get brighter. They all burn longer. Domestic violence is a problem that we cannot solve alone. When we come together, we can shine brighter, burn longer, fulfill our potential. We can look to a future without domestic violence. We can light the way. We can burn brighter together.
Aloha mai kako. My name is Kai Lindsay. I serve as the confidential advocate and prevention educator at the University of Hawai'i at Hilo. As we reflect on the impacts of domestic violence on our community, we begin this evening in Pule to establish our intentions, to invite the presence of our ancestors, to implore their protection, to ask for the understanding, insight, foresight, and strength necessary to address domestic violence and its effects on our ohana and on our kaiōulu. The pule will be captioned on the screen and will include images of our environment as our eldest ancestor to remind each of us of our inherent relationship to the aina and also to each other as kanaka. We invite you to participate this evening in establishing our intentions through pule. Mahalo, e pule pualu kako.
E o umau kia I mai ka pō mai, e nāna ia mai ka hale o kako. Mai luna ai lalo, mai ka hikihi ai ka hikihi, mai ka hikina ai ke komahana. Mai ka uka he kai, mai loko a waho, kia I ia mālama ia, e pale aku ina ho'opili kia ana I ko kako nohona. A mama ua noa. Nā au mākua mai ka la hiki a ka la kau, mai ko ho'oku I a ka hala vai. Nā au mākua I a ka hina kua I a ka hina alo, I a ka a kau I ka lani. O ki ha I ka lani, o e I ka lani, nunulu I ka lani, ka holo I ka lani. E ia ka pula pula o ko ke au nei. E mālama o ko ia māko. E ulu I ka lani, e ulu I ka honua, e ulu I ka pai aina o Hawai'i. E ho mai ka ike, e ho mai ka ikaika, e ho mai ki aka mai, e ho mai ka mau popopono, e ho mai ka ike pāpā lua, e ho mai ka mana. A mama ua noa.
I'd like to introduce you to David. David is an instructor at the Myron B. Thompson School of Social Work at the University of Hawai'i at Manoa. He's also a member of the Naleo Kane Collaborative with the Department of Health. What we understand about trauma is that it can be held within the body, and the first step to healing is to be aware of what's going on inside. Because of that, David's going to walk us through a grounding activity check-in with our bodies. Whether you're in a domestic violence situation, you're experiencing some type of hurt, or you've just been feeling stressed this week, we invite you to join us in this activity.
Aloha. I'd like to invite you to join me in this mindfulness practice called the body scan. This exercise will allow you to check in with your entire body and ground yourself in the here and now. Let's begin. First, start by finding a comfortable position. You can choose to sit, like I'm doing, or you can do this exercise standing up or laying down. Either way is fine, just as long as you can stay engaged with your body. So once you find a comfortable position to be in, go ahead and gently place your focus onto your breath. Taking normal breaths, feeling your body inhale and exhale. Again, placing our focus on how our body is feeling. Inhaling and exhaling. And as you're doing this, if you notice that you have any racing thoughts, just be aware of it. You don't have to change it, you don't have to address them. Think of it as cars that are driving by on a highway. And all you're doing is just noticing the thoughts. If you find yourself, though, following one of these thoughts, just gently remind yourself to bring your attention back into your breath. Again, normal breaths, inhaling and exhaling. So now that we've gone and placed our attention on our breath and checked in with ourselves, let's begin our body scan. So let's place our attention onto our feet. You can go ahead and you can continue to see if you can feel any type of tingling, any sensations that are going on with your feet. If you do, that's okay. Just notice it. And from your feet, we're going to go ahead and travel all the way up through our shins, our calves, all the way up to our knees. Again, being aware of any sensation, any tightness. And from our knees, we're going to go ahead and travel all the way up through our quads, our hamstrings, and go to our hips. A lot of times in our hips, we can feel some tightness and some discomfort. Again, we're just practicing being okay with our body, noticing what's going on. And from our hips, we're going to go ahead and travel into our abdomen. A lot of times, this is where we can feel a lot of energy if we're feeling stress. We just want to notice what's going on with our body. If you can find a time to allow for some comfort and for some softness to enter into your body, great. If not, just practice being aware of the sensations of what's going on within your body. And from our abdomen, we're going to go ahead and travel all the way up towards our chest. This is another common area in the body where we can feel a lot of energy, tightness. This is a lot of times where we can feel that anxiety the most. Again, if you can allow your body to soften, great. But just be aware of it, see what's going on, what your body is trying to tell you. And from our chest, we're going to go ahead and transition into our arms, starting with our hands. If you feel any tingling, any sensations, just be aware of it. And from our hands, we're going to travel all the way up towards our elbows, feeling any sensations. And from our elbows, we're going to go ahead all the way up towards our biceps and end at our shoulders. The shoulders are another common place in the body where we carry a lot of our stress, a lot of our day. So if you can allow it to soften, that would be wonderful. You can do this by just taking those breaths and grounding yourself in those breaths. But again, we want to notice, be aware of what's going on in our body. And from our shoulders, we're going to travel all the way up through our neck, towards our face, and right at the top of our head, feeling any sensations, allowing ourselves to be okay with what our body's doing. And from the top of our head, we're going to go ahead and just do a clean sweep from the top of our head all the way down towards our feet, noticing what's going on in our body, being aware. And as we set to complete this body scan exercise, I want you to go ahead and take some time to thank yourself for doing something good for your body, taking care of yourself, allowing yourself to be present. So mahalo for taking this journey with me in doing this exercise called the body scan. I look forward to the rest of our night.
Hi, I'm David Uranaka Yamashiro, the Title IX coordinator for Honolulu Community College. As a Title IX coordinator, I'm responsible for furthering UH's commitment to a safe and non-discriminatory campus environment that provides an equal opportunity to access high-quality education. UH's educational mission is closely intertwined with the experiences of people in Hawaii. This is why it's so important to have DV awareness events like this one. We can learn from the experiences of others and through their stories, strengthen our own resolve to improve our community for the better. As we recognize the people impacted by domestic violence, we're grateful for the speakers who are willing to share their stories with us now. And so we'd like to both welcome and thank Cheryl Zimbra, a mom who fled the Big Island from her perpetrator, Luana Moreno, a daughter who witnessed her mother being abused at the early age of 4, and Uilani O'Halpine, Miss United States 2020. Her platform centers around domestic violence issues.
My name is Luana Moreno. I was born in San Diego, California, and currently live here in Hawaii. This is my story of witnessing my mom experience domestic violence. Before it all, my mom was a vibrant, free-spirited dancer who toured the world and lived fearlessly. She danced to the beat of her own drum, even if somebody was playing behind her. She met a man that always went to watch her shows, basically chased her, and eventually he caught her. He was aggressive, manipulating, and made it almost impossible for her to leave. 8 years in, and after 4 years of marriage, I was born. But it didn't stop there. The abuse continued physically, sexually, mentally, and spiritually. I can't say that I remember any feelings that came up while the abuse was happening because I was so little. But as I've grown up, I've basically learned my story from my mom. I was very fearful, afraid of people, terrified of any loud noises, and I had severe separation anxiety from my mom. She was usually shielding me and protecting me from him and any objects coming at us. She would always hide me from anything she was experiencing. This was what the first 4 years of my life were like. There were several occasions where my mom attempted fleeing, but he always found us. And it continued. The abuse went on, got worse, more threats arose, and the rainbow at the end of the tunnel was getting more and more distant for my mom to see. It wasn't until I was 4 years old, at a doctor's appointment with my mom, where the doctor noticed bruises on my mom's arm and asked her about it. My mom fell apart and finally told somebody what was going on, and it made sense because my behavior had changed and the doctor had noticed during that visit also. So that was when somebody finally found out and we had a chance. She was the one to open the door of hope for us. After that, there was no other choice but to leave. The abuse was getting worse, and my mom was told that she would lose me if we didn't get out. And she made it happen. We were finally free, all because one person said something. My mom had an advocate, found support, and got restraining orders that helped us feel some protection. I can't just say that this affected my life. It shaped my life. I wouldn't be here without my mom surviving, and my mom would not have survived if my doctor had not only noticed, but also said something. Growing up, I was always aware of what domestic violence was and how it had roots in my life. But I'd say within the last couple of years, I've been able to really learn and understand why it wasn't so easy to just leave, and how it's actually the most dangerous time for a victim. I've also been able to really grasp the importance of awareness and how it's possible and so important to reach any person aware of this or not. It can literally save lives. My mom survived, but the person she was before didn't. Abuse isn't just physical. Your body is not the only thing that can be bruised, broken, or invaded. She has thrived in her survival, but the hurt has never left her. The pain and trauma never goes away. It still shows its face, physically, mentally, spiritually, and personally. Two things my mom taught me and continues to tell me to this day is believe in yourself and to know that love shouldn't hurt.
Aloha, my name is Cheryl. I'm 46 years old and I'm a single mother of 4 beautiful children. Today, I can stand before you and say we truly have a wonderful life together again. And this is the life we were always deserving of. 10 years ago, this was not the case. You see, in 2011, I married a man who would turn out to be a monster, and our worst nightmare was just beginning. My children and I are survivors of severe domestic violence, and my 9 and 7-year-old daughters and I are survivors of assault. In 2011, I relocated from Oahu to the Big Island, and for the first time in my life, I was isolated from family and friends. 2011 was the year the abuse began. I would spend the next 9 years trying to get us all safely back home. Flash forward to the present day, October 2020, Domestic Violence Awareness Month. For my children and I, numerous police reports, 2 orders for protection issued by courts have all come to pass. Countless family court hearings later, and a recent assault in 2018. I have been strangled, not once, but twice. I have been dragged out of the house by my hair. I have had our perpetrator of abuse threaten to bash my head into the concrete, all of this in front of my children. I have covered up many bruises and lived with fear and pain. Mostly, the pain of a system that's not set up completely to protect us from manipulation and coercion, financial abuse, litigation abuse, all at the hands of an individual who shows zero remorse. Recently, I was asked to write a victim statement addressed to a judge in criminal court. Despite the judicial system being fundamentally fractured, despite the judge not ordering any time behind bars, and perhaps worse of all, despite having the judge grant a deferral, so when our perpetrator completes his 1-year probation without any more arrests or trouble with the law, he can request for this to be removed from his record. We stood to lose our lives. Our perpetrator didn't even lose his freedom. My victim statement, however, empowered me to use my voice in the hopes of reaching out to others. Today, I rename my victim statement to a statement of survival. I am proud to say that my children and I are survivors, no longer victims.
Aloha, my name is Uilani Ohalpine. I am the current Mrs. Hawaii United States 2020, and I'm also a full-time flight attendant with Hawaiian Airlines. I was raised in Waimanalo, and I currently reside in Ewa Beach. My first experience with an abusive relationship was at the age of 16. My boyfriend at that time was 21 years old. Most of my memories prior to that were those of a happy, carefree, and normal life of a teenage girl. I disobeyed my parents' wishes of not having a relationship with this older man. I ended up getting pregnant 1 month after I graduated high school. I experienced verbal, emotional, and physical abuse throughout the 3.5 years of this relationship. When my son was 3 months old, my boyfriend was arrested and incarcerated for 7 years. Thankfully, that was the end of that relationship, but sadly, only the beginning of a cycle of 16 years of different abusive relationships I would find myself in throughout my life. My last abusive relationship ended up being the worst. That relationship completely broken me as a person. I had absolutely no self-esteem, self-worth, and confidence within myself. I knew in my head that this relationship was destructive, but I couldn't get out. It was like the worst form of addiction that any person can experience. People would always tell me how I deserved so much better and that I was so beautiful, but my heart could not ever receive any of those words, and I could never believe any of those words that were ever spoken. Even laying in the ER room after suffering internal bleeding from 3 broken bones in my lower back, which is due to a kick during a fight, that wasn't enough for me to leave this relationship. It took my 10-year-old son crying one day, telling me that, "Mommy, I'm not the same person," that all I did was cry all the time, and that I was always so sad when I was around him. That for me was a pivotal moment because I realized that if I couldn't leave the relationship for myself, I surely needed to leave the relationship for my son. My poor son did not deserve to see his mom sad all of the time, and having to carry a burden of protecting me is something that no child should ever have to carry. I finally made the decision to get out and to never look back on that life. I walked through 4 years of healing. I had an amazing Christian faith-based counselor that helped me immensely. And it was through this counseling that I realized my childhood issues of abandonment and rejection stemmed from not having a father figure in my life. My parents divorced when I was 1, so I did not see much of my father in the first 9 years of my life. That was a major contributing factor to why I so desperately craved love, attention, and affirmation through all of these abusive relationships that I was involved in. I attended church, I began to serve on the worship team, and really strengthened my life and my relationship with God. As I began to learn to love myself, I saw a big change within me. I began to carry myself with confidence. I knew what I was deserving of, and I knew that I would never go back to another abusive relationship again. The journey of healing wasn't easy, but it was so worth it. I just celebrated my 7th wedding anniversary on October 12th. I was blessed with an amazing man that loves me and my son as his very own. He is very respectful and treats me like a queen. He is everything that I prayed for when I was going through my years of abuse and brokenness. Today, I find joy in sharing my story with others in hopes of encouraging, inspiring, and giving others hope. I never forgot what it felt like to hear other women speak life and encourage me when I was living through abuse and brokenness. Now I'd like to be able to do the same and do that for others. As Mrs. Hawai'i United States, my platform is domestic violence advocacy. There is much pain in my purpose, and my story is meant to be heard and shared with others.
Domestic violence is a very dark and lonely journey. You may start to walk away many times, and you may return, defeated, right back to where you started. I recently learned it takes approximately 7 times for a victim to leave a domestically violent relationship. I'm here today to ask victims to implore with you to please keep walking. Even if you cannot see your way out, even if you feel defeated and all alone, please keep putting one foot in front of the other.
It's not just easy to up and leave, and there's a million reasons why. It's hard doing it all on your own, but you are not weak. You are not wrong or unable. You are not alone, and you have support.
You have people who love you, and some may even be willing to fight alongside you. These people may be far and few, but trust me, they are there.
Surround yourself with people that will love you. They will stand by your side and be there to help you every step of the way as you walk through your healing.
So my message in all of this is that there is hope. If you're experiencing an unhealthy or abusive relationship, or have heard something similar from a friend, there is hope.
Please know that you are very special. You are important, and you deserve so much more. Your worth is not defined by the words and actions of another person towards you. Your past does not define your future.
If you know someone experiencing abuse, be the one to open that door of hope for them. Don't just notice. If you notice something, say something or ask. Find resources, provide resources. There is always an ear that will listen, that wants to listen, and there is always a shoulder to cry on.
Domestic violence is a very dark journey, but the voices of survivors can see you through that darkness. And thanks to good people who spend their lives advocating for victims of violent crimes, may their tireless work in the combination of all those who have survived together shine a light in the dark. We are all truly brighter together.
Thank you, Luana, Cheryl, and Uilani for sharing your stories. At least for me, when I heard your story, the emotion that arose up in me is my role and identity as a male. It makes me realize that I have a responsibility to promote a culture that does not tolerate the abuse of women. On a personal note, I had a friend who experienced sexual abuse, and for me, as their friend, it just frustrated me that their humanity was robbed. I just think there should be no reason for someone's humanity to be robbed by their perpetrator.
Yeah, it makes me realize the seriousness of this issue and that we really need to give attention to those who are suffering. It makes me think, how can I help in the healing process? If there's any survivors in the chat right now, if I can personally offer you one piece of encouragement, I would want you to know that you are not alone. So now we want to create the space for you to encourage someone else at this event. If a survivor is tuning in right now, what's one encouraging word that you want to share with that person? So take 2 minutes, type your encouragement in the chat, and we'll see you soon.
Each of us illuminate our world with our experiences, talents, gifts, and strengths. Here is a collection of artists sharing their ways of shedding light on domestic violence.
Baby, I love hanging out with you.
We always have such a good time together.
Babe, if you love me, let's just chill by ourselves tonight.
If you love me, you should always hold my hand in public so people know you're mine.
If you love me, you will always answer my calls.
If you love me,
Show me who you are messaging.
Who's Keikoa?
I don't care if you're just friends.
Delete.
and that Amanda chick,
Delete.
You shouldn't be talking to them.
delete.
I thought I was enough.
I should just break up with you. But if you really love me as much as you say you do,
You'll have no problem proving your love to me.
You know I'll need all your attention.
nothing else should come before me.
Not school.
Not your job.
Not your family.
And definitely not your friends.
If you love me,
I won't have to tell you these things again.
You would understand why it needs to be this way.
If you love me.
Maybe if I was better,
Smarter,
better looking,
had more money. Maybe he's right.
I should just listen to her.
I feel so alone.
So scared. Confused.
Insecure.
I feel so worthless.
Is this what love is supposed to feel like?
This is not.
This is not.
this is not.
What love is supposed to feel like.
Love should never require someone to say,
If you love me.
love it, I love it, I love it. The challenges come my way, and I strive to be present every moment, every day. Sitting with emotion, ebb and flow. I'm an ocean, pool of sorrow, still floating, wave of joy. Now I'm coasting. Keep my focus, forward motion. Healthy boundary, that's a self-love potion. Mix it up a little, take the wheel and steer it up and up and up a level. True self-promotion.
Smooth like lotion, I stays in motion. Mindful, my thoughts and actions are potent. Clarify what my goals is, then I go in deep like the ocean, growing and flowing. If it don't work my way, that's totally okay. Tomorrow's another day, I'ma find another way. Affirmations of mine come to life every day. Call it conscious languaging, I get to watch what I say. I love me, do you love you?
True love starts with one I love.
I love me, do you love you?
You know what you've got to do.
I love me, do you love you?
To yourself, be soft, be
I love me, do you love you?
self-love's gonna carry you through.
Mind, body, soul, the light and the dark. Honor myself with all of my heart. Divine, masculine and feminine energy aligned by design. That is my remedy.
Me time, light a candle, take a bath on a hot prana. Let me breathe, relax, immerse in self-love. Now I quench my own thirst. I am worthy, I am free, I am foremost, I am first.
Fill my own glass before I fill yours up.
Okay.
Half full is how I like to see my cup.
Me too.
Drunk off love, living my life, oh no. Do what I love cause it tastes so, oh no.
Yes, and now I get to show up. That's the part I always wanted to know. That's how it goes, streaming, coming, and we got it to flow in the direction of the lesson. So we heed and heal. Ain't no perfection, we're growing. That's real.
I love me, do you love you?
True love starts with one I love.
I love me, do you love you?
You know what you've got to do.
I love me, do you love you?
To yourself, be soft, be
I love me, do you love you?
self-love's gonna carry you through.
Alright, we about to ask for y'all help real quick. Check it out. When we say love, you say pono. Love, pono. Love, pono. When we say pono, y'all say love. Pono, love. Pono, love. When we say love, y'all say pono. Love, pono. Love, pono. When we say pono, y'all say love. Pono, love. Pono, love. Pono, love. Pono, love. Pono, love. Pono, love.
Aloha, my name is Maya Sutoro Ng, and I'm a Peace Studies professor at the University of Hawai'i Manoa's Matsunaga Institute for Peace and Conflict Resolution, where I supervise practicum students and have taught peace education, conflict management for educators, peace movements, and leadership for social change. The following poem was written by a powerful woman, poet, artist, and activist named Naomi Shihab Nye. It's called Shoulders. A woman crosses the street in rain, stepping gently, looking 2 times north and south because her son is asleep on her shoulder. No car must splash him, no car drive too near his shadow. This woman carries the world's most sensitive cargo. But he's not marked. Nowhere does his jacket say fragile, handle with care. Her ear fills up with breathing. She hears the hum of a boy's dream deep inside him. We're not going to be able to live in this world if we're not willing to do what she's doing with one another. The road will only be wide. The rain will never stop falling.
a piece to honor, a piece to release, a dance for the born, the dying, and for the dead. This is a dance for all humanity. It is an art response to death and for the symphony of decay. Titled Grave Transfer Botol, Chloe Groom is a candidate for the Masters in Fine Arts program in the Department of Theater and Dance at the University of Hawai'i at Manoa. Please enjoy Grave Transfer Botol.
Aloha mai kako. I am Kahawilahi Vegas, and today I will be dancing a hula called Puahone by Dennis Kamakahi. And it is a song talking about a woman and comparing her to a beautiful flower. So I dedicate the song for all of the wahine who may not know of their beauty, but within them they have a gift of beauty. Mahalo, aloha. Today I chose to dance next to a hala tree. A hala tree is a significance of passing, and many of these beautiful women may not be present and they may have been passed. So this is dedicated to you. Mahalo.
Our words are incantations. Bayabas or guava leaf from Palolo Valley. Niog, coconut husk from Oahu. Cedar, a gift from a friend on Squamish territory in Washington state. And some white sage from California. My teachers have taught me that the smoke of our offerings carries our words up to our ancestors. There are many people who burn plant medicines and materials as a way to clear energy or to send their blessings up into the heavens, carried by the smoke. Verbal abuse is also domestic violence. Words are holy. Words are sacred. I'd like to take a moment for everyone to find words of blessing, words of prayer, words of incantation, so that together our words collectively rise with the smoke of all of these medicines together. And we connect with our ancestors and ask them to give us guidance. In a lot of our cultures, the practices of our ancestors were banned or considered criminal or witchy, but these traditions and ways of connecting with the plant world were also ways for us to connect with ourselves, our communities, and also with the divine light that each of us holds inside that cannot be extinguished by violent words or actions. And through the transformation of these plants into smoke, we ask our ancestors to protect us. We ask for forgiveness and healing for those who cannot find the right words.
A big mahalo to all of the artists for sharing your work with us this evening. Through your craft, you help others speak things that can't always be said with words. Now we want to take this time to remember and honor 5 victims who've passed this year due to domestic violence. We have a memorial video followed by a moment of silence.
Now going back to David's grounding activity, let's check in with our bodies and see how we're doing. So we're gonna do a scan from the bottoms of our feet to the top of our head and see if there's any stress or tension that we're experiencing, and just notice it. And I wanted to invite you to do this together. Let's take a deep breath in and exhale out. Deep breath in and exhale out. And one last time. One deep breath in and exhale out. Now let's honor and pay respects for the 5 victims that have passed within the last year due to domestic violence. On February 19, 2020, at approximately 7:30 a.m., 41-year-old Smriti Saksena's body was found on the northwest side of Hawaii Island. Smriti was a mother of 2 children, a dancer, and had been a Microsoft Business Program Manager in Redmond, Washington. On November 1st, 2019, Catherine Angeles, 48 years old, of Kilauea, Kauai, died of a homicide. Based on the medical examiner's findings, police believe that her partner is responsible for killing Catherine and himself. They both died of wounds to their upper thighs. Their bodies were found shortly after 11:20 a.m. on November 1st, when police were dispatched to Poipu shores to conduct a welfare check. Upon their arrival, the two adults were found dead. The investigation remains ongoing. A friend of the couple said that Catherine and David created a documentary, Popeye, a true American hero, and that they worked with Kupuna to create videos across the Hawaiian Islands. Catherine, affectionately known as Cat, was described to be empathetic and a life lost too soon. On January 11, 2020, Malia Solma Velmoha, 30 years old, of Mililani, Hawaii, was murdered in Wahiawa by her former boyfriend, Bernard de Coito. HPD said Malia was shot in the head near Whitmore Village while talking to a friend on the phone. Bernard was charged with manslaughter and several firearm offenses. According to the Domestic Violence Action Center's database, Bernard had domestic violence reports with 2 previous victims. Those who knew Malia said she was full of life and would light up the room with laughter. Malia was a beautiful person inside and out. She always was smiling. She had the biggest heart and the biggest smile. She made everyone feel welcome. She was always dancing no matter where she was. Malia is survived by her son Ezra, mother Mary, father Michael, and her sister Melanie. On March 26, 2020, Kayla Holder, 23 years old, and her infant son, Kainoa, was murdered at an apartment complex in Eva Beach, Oahu. Kayla and her son lived at the apartment with her boyfriend and the baby's father, Kendall Rashad Ramsey. He was 31 years old at the time and is now behind bars on $2 million bail in connection with their deaths. Police said Kayla's friend called 911 after discovering her and her baby unresponsive. First responders declared both mother and baby dead at the scene. Kayla had at least 1 stab wound, but the official causes of her and her son's death are still pending. Kayla was a loving daughter, mother, and U.S. Army soldier. Kayla was described as beautiful inside and out, with a heart of gold. A loved one wrote, "She lived her short 23 years on Earth to the fullest." Kayla and Kainoa's GoFundMe page reads, "Their lights were dimmed way too soon, but their afterglow shines bright." Just 3 months ago, on Sunday, July 26, 2020, Mary Guo, 31 years old, was fatally stabbed by her boyfriend, 35-year-old Dustin Saluda. Police say officers and an ambulance crew showed up at the 27th floor apartment in Makiki on a 911 call of a suicidal male with a weapon. When Dustin opened the door to police, he was covered in blood and holding a knife. They found Mary in the bedroom with multiple injuries. She died at the hospital. Dustin was charged with second-degree murder, and his bail was set at $1 million. Mary was a graduate of Roosevelt High School in UC Berkeley, where she double majored in integrative biology and Chinese. She then earned a Bachelor of Science in Nursing and a Master's in Public Health at the University of Hawai'i at Manoa. Mary aspired to be someone who would be a force for good in our community and was considered to be a rising star in Hawaii's healthcare industry. Please join me in a moment of silence as we remember Malia, Catherine, Kayla, Mary, and Simriti.
You're broken down and tired of living life like a merry-go-round, and you can find the fight there, but I see it in you, so we're gonna walk it out. Mountains, we're gonna walk it out. Mountains, now rise up, high like the day. I'll rise up, I'll rise unafraid. I'll rise up, and I do it 1,000 times again. And I'll rise up, high like the waves. I'll rise up, in spite of the ache. I'll rise up, and I do it 1,000 times again. When the silence isn't quiet, and it feels like it's getting harder to breathe, and you don't feel like dying, I promise we'll take the world to its feet and move mountains. We're gonna walk it out. Mountains, and I'll rise up, high like the day. I'll rise up, I'll rise unafraid. I'll rise up, and I do it 1,000 times again. And I'll rise up, high like the waves. I'll rise up, in spite of the ache. I'll rise up, and I do it 1,000 times again. For you, for you, for you, for you. And I'll rise up, high like the day. I'll rise up, I'll rise unafraid. I'll rise up, and I do it 1,000 times again. Thank you.
Before we begin our formal candlelight ceremony, please take this time to prepare and light your candle. If you do not have a candle, you can download a virtual one on your phone. We'll post a link in the chat, and there will also be a link in the resource section. Tonight we had the privilege and opportunity to witness people share their light through story, art, and advocacy. We now ask you to reflect on your innate light. What experiences, talents, gifts, and strengths do you offer to the world? How can you use them to help put an end to domestic violence?
As a student of the John A. Burns School of Medicine, with this light, I, Kara, pledge to end domestic violence.
As a Title IX peer educator, I, Jessie, take a pledge to stand against domestic violence.
I, Madoka Kumagai, pledge to end domestic violence.
I, Jen Pagala Barnett, pledge to stand with survivors.
I, Farah Marie Gomes, pledge to end domestic violence.
I, Anne,
I, Summer. I, Brooke Conway.
I, Juliet Leiter Cam, founder of Women Speaking Out Hawaii, pledge to continue to empower and educate the youth of Hawaii about dating violence.
By being an active bystander when I see situations in which people are not safe.
Listening to athletes who've been affected by domestic and dating violence and provide them with the resources to get help.
Through continued collaborations with policy and decision makers.
I, Chris Yano Aria, pledge to remind the community that men can be victims of abuse too.
As a faculty member at Kapiolani Community College, I, Yonoko Kanaoka, pledge to end domestic violence.
By being knowledgeable in the resources in my community, and as a future physician, being able to recognize the signs of domestic abuse.
By educating my fellow students on how to be an active bystander.
And to always promote equity and justice in my personal and professional communities.
As a member of the Naleo Kane Collaborative, a statewide initiative to engage men as allies in the prevention of sexual and domestic violence, we pledge to speak out against sexual and domestic violence and promote positive masculinity.
I'm Michelle Bradley, pledge to end domestic violence by learning to become an active bystander and by inciting productive conversation about domestic violence within my academic community.
By reassuring the students and faculty members that they are not alone, that I am here to listen to them with empathy and without judgment and help ensure their safety on campus.
I pledge to create spaces for men where they feel comfortable to express their emotions so that they are no longer in silence alone.
I, Belle, pledge to end domestic violence by speaking out against violence and supporting those who have been impacted within my circles and my community.
By role modeling healthy relationship behaviors for my keiki.
By role modeling healthy, respectful relationships and providing safety, support, and care to all students.
By working with my students, my colleagues, and my community to create a safe and respectful learning environment for everyone.
I, Lexner, pledge to end domestic violence by educating my students on building healthier relationships with themselves and with others.
By teaching them to recognize unhealthy relationship behaviors, and by always reminding them of our kuleana, to care for ourselves and one another.
As a survivor of domestic violence, I vow to end the intergenerational trauma with me.
My pledge is, I, Jethro Mukara Egg, pledge to end domestic violence by reestablishing a culture of masculinity that does not seek power and control, but interdependence and vulnerability.
Now, we'd love to hear from you. We'll take a 2-minute break for you to share your pledge in the chat. Our hope is that we would all do our part to end domestic violence. So take 2 minutes, type your pledge in the chat, and we'll be back for our finale. Thank you so much for your pledges. As our program comes to a close, we'd like to introduce Matapuna Levinson, also known as Puna. She's a former victim advocate who has helped individuals and families in crisis due to domestic violence, sexual assault, and human trafficking. Puna recently completed her graduate studies through the University of Southern California School of Social Work. She lives on Hawaii Island with her husband and 9-year-old son.
Mahalo Chris for the introduction, and fatai tele lava to everyone who organized this incredible convening. It is an honor and a privilege to be part of this important event that honors and supports victims and survivors. Every year we recognize October as Domestic Violence Awareness Month. This year we have seen one of the greatest public health crises of our time, the coronavirus pandemic, disrupt almost every aspect of our lives. Domestic violence is also a public health crisis, which has gone on for far too long. Domestic violence has been referred to as a silent epidemic because this type of violence thrives in secrecy and hides behind shame. Domestic violence is not just a private matter between couples or something that remains in families. It often spills into classrooms, workplaces, and places of worship. And based on the research, it is likely that some of you have experienced domestic violence yourself. You carry this weight, along with the demands of school, work, and home life. Know that you are not alone. Today, you have witnessed the voices, stories, and lived experiences of victims and survivors. We have seen through spoken word, song, and dance the power that comes from shining a light not only on the devastation caused by domestic violence, but on those who are committed to ending it in their relationships, homes, and communities. And as a community, we know we cannot end this violence without each other. College is a time for growth and learning, to assert your independence, to find, test, shape, and create the person you want to be. And that includes the types of relationships you want to have in your life. We see you through your research, your work, organizing, volunteering, and standing up wherever you are. You are helping to create a beloved community where everyone can learn, grow, and love in relationships and in spaces free from violence. The month is quickly coming to an end, but this movement continues. Ending domestic violence and building towards that beloved community can feel like a big undertaking, because it is. There is no better time than Domestic Violence Awareness Month to acknowledge the pervasiveness of this problem and respond to it. We cannot allow this silent epidemic to continue. From believing and listening compassionately to our loved ones when they disclose being abused, to challenging hateful and violent rhetoric on campus, to coaching healthy manhood in young athletes, and developing and supporting workplace policies that ensure survivors are protected and perpetrators are held accountable. And by centering and uplifting the voices of our Native Hawaiian, Pacific Islander, and diverse cultural communities in facilitating this vision of a beloved community. Continue doing what you are already doing, which is engaging in discussions and community building around ending domestic violence. Continue to learn about the dynamics of abuse and what healthy and respectful relationships are. You can also connect with your community by learning about the domestic violence programs around you. It can include volunteering and supporting their events and campaigns. You can join community associations and grassroots organizations and connect with your local government representatives. Now, next Tuesday is the general election day, and your chance to use your voice in local, state, and national elections. We are also preparing for another legislative session here in Hawaii starting in January 2021. That is the time where our lawmakers come together and make decisions about policies that impact our lives. Do you know who your state legislators are? Your city council representative? Do you have their contact information? And as a resident and constituent, you have the right to reach out to and speak with your government leaders about issues like domestic violence that are important to you. As we come to the end of this event, your presence here today tells all of us that you care. You care about victims and survivors. You care about ending this violence and manifesting that beloved community, the beautiful future we want for ourselves, our families, and our communities across the islands. And on behalf of all of us here today, thank you. Thank you for being here. Mahalo and aloha.
Mahalo Anui Loa for joining us. We value your presence, support, and love tonight. We hope you continue to be present and active in the battle to end domestic violence.
A call to action toolkit can be found in the resource tab. This toolkit includes several resources for domestic violence prevention, education, and advocacy, as well as resources for those currently experiencing domestic violence. Also in the resource section is our evaluation survey for tonight's experience. Please fill it out after the vigil. We appreciate your feedback to continue this work.
This vigil also could not have been possible without our partners and funders. We especially want to thank L-Shape Productions for capturing our virtual event. They've been so great to work with. If you would like to utilize their services, check out the resource section for their contact information, or follow them on Instagram at L-Shaped Productions. Also, to keep up with our future events, follow us on Instagram at PAU Violence.
Domestic violence occurs in relationships. Therefore, healing must take place through relationships. As we come to a close, who is someone in your life that means a lot to you? Maybe someone you want to show appreciation to, or maybe someone you haven't seen in a while and maybe having a hard time right now. Let's end the night by calling, FaceTiming, or texting them to let them know how much you really appreciate them. When all is said and done, what truly matters are the relationships that we cultivate. Mahalo. Until next time, may we keep burning brighter together.